Do we have the next panel ready, please? Just have a quick check. Okay, right. So I'm honored to introduce our next panel to you. Well, I have been looking forward to this panel, not because it's an all-women panel, but the perspectives that will be shared would be insightful, thought-provoking, and powerful, just the way our panel is. We are grateful to our moderator, Mr. Anshul Jain, who's the head of Cushman and Wakefield in India and Southeast Asia. Anshul holds over 25 years of experience across Southeast Asia and Europe. His real estate experience spans across functions. Well, you may be interested to know, at least I was, that he's an enthusiastic cook, and we look forward to being invited one day. Welcome, Anshul.
Thank you.
For our next two speakers, I would like to invite Rajanji to have our to introduce our speakers. Rajanji, are you there?
Yeah. Thank you, Neetu. Thank you. I think Tara ma'am has already joined, and Sangeeta is yet to join. She has got some technical issues. So till then, I think I would introduce Tara ma'am, and once Sangeeta ma'am joins, you can introduce Sangeeta ma'am. Tara ma'am, Tara Subramaniam. In real estate industry, who doesn't know her? It starts from T, Tara. So it starts as terror. In the entire real estate industry, she is known as the terror woman. You can name any developer. By her name only people know. They know the moment the Tara ma'am is there, they don't look left or right, they start walking straight. That's the credit what she has earned. And let me tell you very honestly and acknowledge here, if NAREDCO has come up to this stage, Tara ma'am is one of the pillar from the day one, because when we started NAREDCO, I think I was very fortunate. She just retired from HDFC. So she was sitting idle, or she was thinking what to do or what not. See, you earned too much from the real estate industry as an ancillary industry. You earned your livelihood and everything. So now this is a time for you to return something. So she readily agreed, and I and entire NAREDCO is obliged to her. This is from my end, which I wanted to say. Now, Tara ma'am is a law graduate. In government college, it's very difficult to get admission. She has done it from Government Law College, Mumbai. And she has joined HDFC in 1983, practically almost 3 decades, more than 3 decades she was in HDFC. And the people, HDFC and real estate, both work hand in hand in real estate industry, HDFC as well as developer. She then joined Sun Khemka Group as their real estate director. Thereafter, she was CEO of the NBFC JM Financial Group for 3 years, and then was associated with their newly launched home loan company. She is still an active board member of JM Financial Loans Limited. She has also been a member of Piramal India's REIT fund for about 2 years. She is also currently on board of Burger King India as an independent director. And as I mentioned, she is the founder member and one of the pillar of NAREDCO. Thank you very much and welcome Tara ma'am. Over to you, Neetu.
Thank you, Rajanji. Welcome, Tara ma'am. Very good to see you. Up next is Ms. Richa Goel Agarwal. She's the Deputy General Manager at Securities and Exchange Board of India. Well, over a career span of 17 years, she has handled a variety of work, including work related to AIFs and portfolio managers. Over the last 5 years, Richa has worked extensively in giving policy direction to real estate investment trusts, infrastructure investment trusts, and various facets of financing through debt market. Having interacted with Richa directly as APREA has been pursuing REITs and InvITs agenda, I can tell you that despite her circumstances and work pressure and regulatory reams, Richa and everyone at SEBI were the most supportive to listen to the industry and investors' needs and act upon it. Richa, we are very pleased to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, Neetu.
We also have Ms. Preeti Chheda. She's the Chief Financial Officer at Mindspace Business Parks REIT. Preeti has been associated with the K. Raheja Corp Group for over 13 years across various roles in commercial real estate, raising private equity for real estate projects, investor relations, and financial reporting. Well, I have to tell you that she is the backbone of Mindspace Business Parks REIT, and whose sleepless nights with diligent number cracking and astuteness led to Mindspace Business Parks REIT being oversubscribed 30 times during the pandemic. Welcome, Preeti.
Thank you so much. And hello, everyone.
Hi. Anshul, maybe you could start and we'll introduce Sangeeta once she joins in.
Yeah, Nitu, I am trying Sangeeta ma'am to join, but till then he can start.
Okay, sir. Over to you.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Neetu, and thanks, Rajanji, for starting the introduction, and Neetu for completing it. It's an all-star women's panel, which I'm quite privileged to moderate today. I was nervous, but with that introduction of Tara ma'am that Rajan did, I think I'm a lot more nervous now than I was. So hopefully I'll do justice to this panel. But with that introduction, I thought I'll change things around a little bit. I thought I'll start with real estate and then end with, just the experience as a woman. But I think I feel quite compelled to start with Taraji now and just would like her to share her experience. She's been in the industry for some 40 plus years. She's seen the industry evolving, seen the real estate world evolving, still the financing world evolving. But the question I'd like to ask her is how, as a woman, has she seen the business environment changing for her from, let's say, the real estate world of 90s, early 2000s to now? Taraji?
I think there are some technical disconnect. She's talking and she's unmute also, but we are not able to hear her.
Okay, so why don't I ask the technical team to work with Tara ma'am on the side, and meanwhile I'll kind of move on to the next panelist. So maybe what I'll do is I'll move on to Preeti. Preeti, hi. First of all, let's check whether we can hear you.
Hi, Anshul. I hope
Yes,
you're
we can. Yes, we can. Perfect. So, Preeti, as the introduction read, right, big REIT, very successful, and you've been obviously worked in different industry, and this is the first time, or you've been working in the real estate industry for a while, but this is the first REIT that you've been involved with. So, first of all, how was how was the whole experience around just selling commercial real estate story of India to the world, to the institutions, as you did quite successfully over the last sort of 4 or 5 months before the REIT listed itself? And what's the sort of what have been the learnings out of it if you were to do a second REIT at some stage?
Yeah, Anshul, thank you for that question, an interesting one. So we have been working on the REIT since almost, I would say, June 2019. And of course, we have a large portfolio of commercial real estate, which has been built over the last 2 decades across various cities in South and West of India. And the portfolio was at a mature stage and had the scale where we thought would be the right time for us to read those assets. And fortunately, I think for India, SEBI has also put in place a very well governed REIT structure, which gives a lot of comfort to investors, also given the robustness that it has demonstrated, similar to foreign jurisdiction. And I should compliment SEBI for that. So it's been a good long 1 year journey. Exciting, of course, REIT being a new instrument, it's been quite a bit of learning for the entire team because there are different nuances as compared to a normal IPO company. So obviously, till we filed the draft of a document, it was a great journey. And of course, as you say, things are never as smooth as you always contemplate. And we had some bit of hiccups on the tax side, and then of course all of that got sorted. And by the time we sorted all of that, the COVID was there right in front of us. So that of course complicated things. But I guess one key thing for us was commercial real estate has shown a great degree of resilience despite the COVID times. And I guess that was one key factor why Mindspace REIT saw such an overwhelming response from both investors, foreign as well as domestic. Despite the COVID times, we managed to collect almost 99% of our rentals in the 6 months. And right in the core of COVID, we actually leased up almost 1 million square feet. And in fact, we're proud to say we added some of the marquee tenants also in our tenant roster despite COVID. So I guess all of this really gave confidence to the team that, despite the headwinds that COVID has brought and despite the challenging times, I think the business is well geared, to take the next leap in terms of getting listed. And I guess that was one reason why we confidently went into the public space. And thankfully, it saw such a great response. And especially, I think the one interesting thing which came out this time was a participation from non-institutional domestic investors, because that book got subscribed almost 16 times, very much to our surprise as well. So it's interesting to know that the product is actually catching flavor with not just foreign investor, which are, as it is REIT savvy, but also with domestic non-institutional investors to whom this product is new. But with this kind of response, I think the product has a long way to go still, though. But it's been very encouraging, I would say.
There must have been moments before you decided to say, let's go with the listing despite COVID. Just describe to us what were the sort of feelings at that point in time, and what tilted the decision, because COVID was a big unknown at that point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think as management, we were discussing in the month of April, should be a go, no go. We did discuss with some of the larger investors also as to how they perceive the market. And of course, we had our bankers along, to guide us what is, the appropriate strategy. But I guess the one key thing which actually triggered this was the performance. We were somewhere, I would say, 2 months into COVID, April, May. And despite COVID, as I, told you, we saw the collections being on track. We continue to lease, of course, the pace slowed down, but, the leasing still continued, beyond our expectation. So I guess that was one trigger which gave us that confidence, and we took the decision that, yes, the business is geared and we are geared to face those headwinds. And then, of course, there was no looking back.
Perfect. Thanks, Preeti. Richa, you were on the other side, obviously building up the REIT framework with the industry and you spent last 5 years within SEBI working on the real estate side. So very exciting 5 years, because it really brought in the REIT era. What were some of the struggles that you had during the period with the industry and within the sort of the governing system? If you could describe that for the audience.
Yeah, so thank you, Anshul, for the question. Thank you, Preeti, for the compliments. I think we've worked together for a long time before it actually came to the crux, and there were 2 successful REITs. So, when I came and joined the department, this particular department was an exciting new space, but we were blocked with a traditional thinking of how to get out of that traditional thing and look from a larger perspective, because we were looking at an institutional participation, etc. So I think the best thing which was done by the government of India in 3 subsequent budgets. It gives so much tax clarifications, one after another. We actually saw something coming in after the budget of 15-16, and after the DDT piece was clarified. I think that was a big bottleneck which was removed, but we are very thankful to the industry, because we started the consultation as back as 2013, and we actually firmed up a lot of things in 2015. Removed a lot of bottlenecks. I think we have worked very closely with both the infrastructure players and the real estate players to take it forward. There were a lot of disconnect as to where and how we need this product to be structured, but I think we have more or less done away with. We have realized, and I think both the market and we are very appreciative of the fact that this is a play for a larger institutional investors as well as some mix for HNIs, etc. Like Preeti was saying, that they are more interested in this product. I guess it's a boon for the real estate developers. They have realized the value of unlocking the stock which is already completed and revenue generating. And obviously, given the tax benefits, it's something which people have realized is of great potential. And I think nothing succeeds like success. So I think having two back-to-back successful REITs, which the investors have really, been very keen and enthusiastically participated, has led to more people looking into it. I believe Brookfield has also filed for a REIT. And I've been keep reading in the newspapers, a lot of other big groups which are planning, years ahead for and have announced that they would be looking at REITs. So that's good news going forward. It's a good capital market vehicle which will give a good transparent way to invest in real estate, etc. So I think that's a good way forward. I think more or less we are sorted in the way the regulatory framework has evolved, both for infrastructure investment trust and real estate investment trust. Having said that, I don't think this is the end of the way legal framework will be structured. There will be things which would be done, and regulator is more than happy to work with all the market participants.
Are there one or two top things that that comes to your mind which needs attention in terms of changing the REIT framework?
The REIT framework, I guess one thing which needs changing is probably, inviting, probably from a regulator point of view, I guess, having marketing, they have done successfully, both Embassy and Mindspace have done successfully in marketing the REIT, but probably the reach out will be more successful. And I guess liquidity is something which market has been raising, given the lot size, etc. Though SEBI did try to address it by bringing down the lot size. And in my personal opinion, I feel that SEBI would be looking at it favorably. That's one thing. And I think debt investment, if foreign portfolio investment, etc., are allowed to participate in debt products of REITs, I think it will give further push to this market, because it'll attract more developers, because debt capital is a more efficient or a cheaper source of financing than only equity being there. So that opens up a far greater window. I think given these two things, I think the market will do phenomenally well for real estate.
Thanks, Richa. Taraji, I will just come back to your question about your experience, personal experience. But since we are on the financing topic, I'll first ask that now. You've seen the world of financing possibly change for the development industry. You've probably seen all models that has existed in India over 25, 30 years. But more importantly, through this kind of COVID period, right? So of course, REIT is emerging as a financing exit model. But what changes have you seen in particular over the last sort of 6-7 months, and how do you think the financing of the development industry will change, if at all, over the coming period?
I think in the last couple of months, it's taken all of us a lot to realize what are the important parameters that one needs to look at, not only where construction is concerned, but even where financing is concerned. And I think the RBI, the government, has given enough reasons for us to come back in a big way. I'm talking about the construction line. And yes, I think there's a lot to be done more. From what I hear and I know, I think we require about 1.5 lakh crore in the real estate market for it to revive. Now, RBI is coming up with a lot of reasons for us to go back to them. Banks are being given a lot of impetus to lend more, but the perception of the credit is so high risk that I think it's going to take a long time for the banking industry to really accept the fact that, unlike what they think, one of the most safe thing, if you ask me, is to lend to the real estate because we do have a tangible security, unlike other lending that the banks do. But I think this perception needs to be changed. Developers have, over a period of time, become far more professional. I'm not saying that they were not professional at that time. They were behaving in a certain manner that they needed to, given the certain environment. Today, the boys have become more global. They've become more corporate in their thinking. There is more transparency. Again, it all depends on what the culture of the organization and the states have been. But yes, I think a lot needs to be done for this industry.
So Taraji, if I think about the development industry in India, you've got maybe the top 20 to 30 players, 4 or 5 in each kind of major city. So maybe even less than 20 to 30 players who have really professionalized themselves, and they've kind of become more like institutions. So the books are a lot more institution-like books. And then there is, there's plenty of development companies out there who are young. Some are doing better than others, professionals. But one thing is common, given where the market has been, particularly resi market over the last sort of few years, that most of those companies are stressed. What would be your advice to them, if any? I mean, how do they dig themselves out of the hole? Some are in very deep hole, as we all know.
Well, actually, the 1, 2, 3 ways that a developer would be able to get out of this mess, although everybody keeps saying about bringing down the prices, I think most developers have really brought down the prices, and it's a question of just sales, sales, and sales. But I think what is going to happen is I would really expect and would be very happy if, State Bank of India and other institutions take a standalone view and fund the last mile funding for these developers. As you rightly said, the big guys are going to get money in any case. It's the smaller guys that need to be looked at. NBFCs also have their little liquidity issue. So, if you have big players like SBI who steps in, I think that will be great. And I would expect the State Bank of India to ramp up and give a little more money. Another thing is, which I have been talking to developers for the last couple of months, ever since this COVID started, is that many of them need to give up a little bit of their equity in their current projects. If you give up a little bit of your equity right now, and there are enough funds that are ready to come into this country, and you have lots of people like HDFC and Kotak who would help you get to these funds, give up your equity, finish your projects, and move on.
Yeah, and one could almost extend that to say sometimes that's probably giving just little bit is not enough, but maybe for the purpose of brand and for the purpose of just making sure that the project completes under your brand, maybe it's about taking a significant loss on a couple of projects to just get things moving.
Anshul, I don't know whether there will be a loss, because anyone who thinks of a loss is going to not be very happy. But even if you break even and finish your project, because see, when the projects are not being constructed and not being finished, there is a loss in any case where your interest is concerned.
Sure.
You're paying interest. So I just feel that if they can liquidate a little bit of their equity and get a little more money. And another very important thing that has emerged now are DMs. So,
Yep.
if they can tie up with little larger developers, what happens is ultimately individuals are going to buy where there is a brand. So again, that's when they're going to be obviously liquidating a little bit of the equity. So it all boils down to them having to give up a little bit to get to where they want.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And I think development management or DMs have really taken off. We've been quite busy, with working with the top sort of, 10 or 15, 20 developers, institutions. I think the deal pipe for the DM has significantly increased for sure. So that's definite realization amongst the next year developers.
Yeah, since we found this NAREDCO, I would really request the big guys to, help out the younger stressed guys a little more. I know their hands are also full, but I think for the overall industry coming up, I think it's very important that the big guys reach out a little more. And I'm talking about the developers.
Yeah. Thanks, Ari. Sangeeta, coming to you, you've been at the helm of the Mahindra World Spaces, and it was both a combination of it's a big residential portfolio on one side and big industrial portfolio on the other side. So maybe a slightly different perspective from you. Resi sales. I mean, what are the trends that you've seen in the last sort of few years, and where do you think this is going to go post COVID? You unmute, Sangeeta.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
First of all, I think Resi always has a starting talk issue. So it's good I'm coming in the end. While the good news is short term, we are all raving about Q1 versus Q2. But we have to just reflect and step back and see that the residential real estate market has been languishing for a while. So if I compare the Q1, and I'm talking calendar year, Q1, Q2, Q3, it's just about the Q1 performance, and Q2 it dipped, and then Q3 again, which is the July to September, saw a upturn. While we should rejoice, we should also reflect on what are the issues still plaguing us. One thing is for sure, humankind has realized that the basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter, and I would say food, shelter, and clothing in that order, has been proved very, very imperative. So people will need, it is not about wanting 10 homes, it's about needing one home and having a safe haven. So that's a good part of all this. Now, what has happened in the last few months, specifically in the context of the pandemic, and I think something had started pre-COVID also, there are three very important players in this whole story of giving a value to a customer. And I'll delve on the supply side first. It's the government, it's the developer, and it is the funding institutions, and much has been said about it. So like in the commercial real estate, REIT has been like a safe haven. It has shown results, and people like Rajas have gone out, and the embassies have gone out and done it. I think this triangle has to be an equilateral triangle. Sorry for using some basic maths, because what has happened in the real estate space is, and in fact, Tara was also mentioning about it, how do these three pillars work together? And I am very happy and relieved, maybe early green shoots. The government has come out and said, okay, I will do a few things for you. And especially in the backdrop of what has happened in the migrant labor situation, the affordable housing area is somewhere the government is really focusing on. I don't want to get into the SOPs they have given, but they are focusing, they're looking at PPPs, they're seeing how can we declutter the slums. So that's one. Karnataka and Maharashtra have done some relief on the stamp duty. So there are many things where the government is coming out, but how does it get implemented is the second aspect which I would like to share my thoughts on. How does the developer and the funding agency therefore work together to, when I've been given a gift, I need to also receive it and receive it well. So the gift giver and the receiver both have to work in tandem, and I see the funding agency as the catalyst which can help the sender and the receiver receive that gift. And these are the three things which need to play a very, very important role. Yes, some early signals. I'm happy to see the Mumbai and NCR figures, Anshul. They have shown an upturn. Yes, Bangalore has been breathing a little hard, maybe because of the supply side being there, and the launches having been less, people are decluttering their inventory, but still the inventory status is fairly high. I'm deliberately being a devil's advocate to provoke the audience here that if we three vertices of a triangle do not work together, then we will not be able to deliver value to the customer. We have talked supply side. I will now talk demand side. And that is the advantage in Mahindra's we had both the real estate, residential, and the industrial working together.
So while you're talking about demand side, could you also address design changes, if at all, post-COVID?
I'll talk about customer. I'm just deliberately getting into the macro and then getting into the micro later. Because there are a few things which I would like to share. Thanks for reminding me. You can give supply SOPs. You can have incentives. You can have funding. Where is the inherent demand going to multiply, add up? Jobs. So what are the macroeconomic incentives which will also help the industrial space. The good thing is the trade wars and the geopolitics has shown us that India has now the opportunity. We have lost the opportunity earlier a few times to the Vietnams and the Thailands and the Bangladeshes of the world, as we know. So what are those things which will create demand for products and services? And that's where the primary source is jobs. So the government is actually investing a lot in infrastructure. There's no, I would say, touchwood, no dearth of funding. FIIs are very, very keen and generous. So how do we get the manufacturing index out? Last 10 years, manufacturing has been languishing. I'm deliberately weaving in the story because I don't think a residential real estate can go on growing forever if we people do not make the macroeconomics work, the industrial. So the 2, 3 positive signs are, as Richa was talking about, InvITs are coming in. The government is very keen on infrastructure and monetizing infrastructure and getting private players. So that's a very good sign, which will create also, whether it's roads, rails, ports, which will create jobs. Then the second is the industrial corridors and the freight corridors need to accelerate themselves. The moment that it happens, the private and public working and investing in these areas will create jobs. And I'm talking about sustainable growth to help the economy to grow and people to buy homes as well. So that's the industrial part. And working together, these two will help. And I'm seeing already the warehousing and logistics getting a slew of investments. Because India as a country, if it has to do well in manufacturing, services, it has seen results, it needs to get the supply chain in place. The Amazons of the world, the critical success factor is the supply chain and nothing more and nothing less. So this is the second element I thought I'll bring in, to bring in that, yes, we need to build good homes and sell good homes. Now, the third and the most important element which you talked about is the customer. What is the customer looking for? Some of you have already touched upon the brand. So I would say I will use 2 key T's in this: trust and technology. And we always have been, developers have been very proud. We are doing no touch sales. Our sales mechanism has become very digitized. That's clearly not enough. The whole value chain, construction, CRM, financial, everything have to work in tandem and use technology like other industries are using, and use technology as a catalyst to enhance trust amongst customers. Because if you use technology to bring in transparency, we have seen as brands, the customer is then willing to depend on you, because the customer has been harmed for decades by developers. They are singeing, they want to buy. So it is for us to use the combination of trust and technology, put all our, people have started. And the good part is, I think COVID, while it is the most, if I may say, the adverse thing to have happened, but it has put some fire in our tails. And it has made us realize that these two elements need to work in tandem.
8 minute कर दे
Funding,
8 minute कर देना
government, and we as developers have to work in tandem, and if not an equilateral and isosceles triangle, at least try to do that. It cannot be a scalene triangle. And that's how I see that. Then 20 is a year we have seen struggle. It will then be because the India is full of potential, and we will need homes, we will need industries, and we will see prosperity. That's how I would like to weave this story.
Yeah. Preeti, quick question on the general portfolio. How and again, I kind of focus a little bit on COVID because that's obviously the talk of the time. How is that going to affect the size, shape, design of the portfolio? What are you guys thinking at a portfolio level?
So yeah, as you rightly said, Anshul, that's talk of the town. There are various, talks which are happening in terms of how are customers going to look at spaces once they start getting back to work. So of course, sometime back, a couple of years back, if you look at the density at the parks, it started off with somewhere around 120, 130. Over the years, it's come down to 80 because all tenants wanted to maximize the spaces. But we now believe that, I'm not sure if it's going to get back to 120 or 130 or so, but at least we are seeing whispers around, or even when the architects are being assignments to design spaces, we clearly seeing this shifting north of 100. So of course, now in terms of design, customers, tenants are going to look at more open spaces, given the COVID protocols that need to be in place. So those design changes, we do believe, will start coming up. Of course, it is early stage still because tenants are still deciding how do they go about their space requirements. But clearly, this is one thing which we see changing post-COVID.
Thanks. Given that's an all-women panel, I would sort of switch the topic now and just talk about your experiences. And I'll start with Taraji. I asked that question. I think you started talking and then we couldn't hear you. But really, your experience, 40 years, and how you've seen things changing for women in the industry, Taraji.
I have to say one thing is that in the banking and financial world, we've always had women. Whether it was Lalita Gupte of ICICI, Arundhati Bhattacharya of SBI, Kalpana Morparia, who's now with Morgan Stanley, ex-ICICI, Naina Lal Kidwai, Ranjana Kumar of NABARD, Shika Sharma. We've had a huge number of women in the banking and financial institutions. I think the two institutions in the banking field that were inclusive where women were concerned, which HDFC and ICICI. I think over a period of time that is improving. And I think workforce in India, especially women workforce in India, is increasing. Right now, because yesterday I heard Dr. Ajit Ranade talk, he said that the workforce in India is about 20-22%. Now that's really, really very, very low. But I think it's over a period of time, it is increasing. I remember when I started off with HDFC, and honestly, I was around 30 years old and I looked younger than I was. I had to actually start wearing a sari to look older, so people trust me more. And, that was the first hurdle that I had to go through. I mean, today you see girls can, wear and look younger. People will still trust them with their money. But in those days, money and women were never really, finance and women were never really the norm. So one had to move with times. But I must say that I think it's been a great journey for us. I remember when I used to go for conferences of 400 developers, there would be 3 or 4 women. And but now I find there's at least 20-30% women in, like today. I mean, so easy, we've got all this. 15 years ago, if you needed women on a panel like this, I think Rajan and Neetu would have torn their hair apart because they would have had very few women. But having said that, it's not only real estate. I think in India, I mean, we were the subcontinent, Indian subcontinent, whether it's Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, we've been far more progressive. We've had women presidents, prime ministers, which even a place like America is reluctant to have a woman president. So I think that way India is far more progressive, but a lot needs to be done. The one thing that I want to ask and request the NAREDCO builder community is to be more inclusive where their sisters, wives, daughters-in-law are concerned. Earlier on, we did have a little bit of a problem with dealing with authorities and things like that. I don't think they would have really accepted women folk going to BMCs and the corporations to get permissions or land dealings. But a lot of things have now changed over a period of time. I think including women is very important because not only we think with our heart, but we also are far more, we have a little bit of intuition, which unfortunately men don't have. I'm not comparing and saying y'all are better or we are better. I think it's a complement of both. We both need each other. But yes, it has changed over a period of time and I'm glad that it's happening. But again, a big request to the developer community to have more women on board. And I'm not talking about the board of company, I'm talking board on their employee level.
Richa, you probably have a more of an outside-in approach, right? So you've been in the financial world, and which probably, as Taraji said, it's a little bit more balanced. The real estate is always a laggard, right? I mean, whether it's in India or globally. What's been your experience dealing with this world of largely men-dominated? Although in the last few months, you've obviously worked very closely with Preeti.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, SEBI is an equal opportunity employer. So we have large, 30 to 40% of the workforce in SEBI are women. And last, I think 12 years, I have had bosses who are women. So I've been very lucky in that respect. But broadly, I agree with what Ms. Subramaniam said. But there is a change, and I have dealt with I think on the other side, I've been dealing with all the MD CEOs who have been predominantly men, but I have come across with a large number of women also. So I guess that's likely to change and more change. And I think SEBI has also taken cognizance on the board of the companies, one women director, government is taking cognizance of that particular fact. And I think going forward, that's something, I mean, we have a women full-time member in SEBI, and we've had deputy governors in Reserve Bank who've been women who've done substantially well. We also had Ms. Arundhati Bhattacharya, like Ms. Subramaniam said. So I think it's changing all over. And perhaps when I entered around 17, 18 year back workforce, it's very different from that time. And I think it was very well accepted. I think as we move toward more professional real estate and infrastructure industry, I think we'll see more women on board. And I think that's the way forward, and I completely agree.
Great, thanks. And Preeti and Sangeeta, both of you, you've had sort of, obviously worked in different industries over a period of time and then have made a name for yourself in real estate. I think same question to both of you. How do you actually compare and contrast your experiences in different industries versus real estate, and the general acceptability in real estate of you as kind of strong professional and senior women?
Yeah. Anshul, it's not about real estate or no real estate. I think things have changed dramatically over the last decade or so. Women have made inroads into, I guess, every sector and across ranks. But I still feel somewhere our social fabric has not been a great enabler to help women take CXO positions at the same length and breadth as men have been taking. So I guess that's where more work needs to be done by all of us collectively. We would definitely like to see women take more of those positions as compared to men. Otherwise, I think it's been a great change over the last couple of years, but for sure we have a long way to go.
Thanks. Sangeeta, your views?
So I have worked in manufacturing and real estate. Both have been quite known for their lack of women population, and that too at the senior level. I think there are two things. One is women do come in these industries at the entry level. There are quite a few who come in and they are qualified, they're equally competent. I think the most important challenge is when the way is lost in between. So how do we collectively, as Preeti said, and but specific to this, how do we collectively work together to see those humps and hurdles are crossed and the ecosystem has more women going up the ladder? So that's what I think is the most important challenge. It's not about entry level. Entry level is perfect. Girls are as good and as boy, and they are as intuitive or as analytical also as boys.
Yeah. I would say more, Sangeeta, but yeah, no, thanks. It was a great panel, and I think one of the issues that I think is quite important, and I think COVID will actually help, is with the whole flexibility, because I think when we talk about diversity as an organization, diversity and inclusion, not only the male female diversity but other kinds of diversity, I think it's very important for all of us to understand the needs for various types or various people, right? So if it's women, it's what are their needs and what period of life that they are going with, and therefore for an organization's ability to provide that flex and change the performance management systems to really look at not a 9 to 6 type jobs, but more sort of goal oriented performance management. I think that is key for organizations to succeed if they are to bring in more talent. And as I said, our industry has always been a bit behind in this, but hopefully with a panel like this and hearing the thoughts, that will change some minds in the industry. Of course, as Taraji said, 10 years ago or even 5-6 years ago, it would have been difficult to put a panel like this. But very proud to see more and more colleagues, who are women, who are kind of coming up and challenging. And I'm sure it's for the best of the industry. So great having all of you on board. Thank you so much. And our time's up. So back to Neetu.
Thank you,
Thank
Anshul.
you.
Thank you.
Anshul, thank you so much. I have to say that Anshul was very gracious with all the graceful ladies who have been here. And thank you so much, all my women leaders. I'm reminded of what Ayn Rand had said. The question isn't who's going to let me, it's who is going to stop me. So thank you once again.